Welcome to Anime Fanfiction Audiobook. Do not forget to like and subscribe. Chapter 7 Gorgeous Debut. Coulson let out a weak groan. All the bones in his body were almost broken, and he let out a hysterical wail under the pressure. Invisible enemies, huge bodies, and terrifying strength. All of these challenged Agent's nerves. A sense of despair that he had never felt before gradually spread from the bottom of his heart. In the past, no matter what kind of desperate situation he faced, Coulson would always find a way out in this desperate situation. But now, he was in despair, completely unable to see where the way out was. Am I going to die? Coulson's eyes were bloodshot from the pressure, and his consciousness became blurry, as if he was only one step away from death. But it was in this situation that Coulson's sight became more and more clear. From the beginning, he could only see a vague outline, and now that he was in a near-death state, he could already see this huge hollow. How ridiculous. Coulson felt bitter in his heart. Is it because I'm dying that I can see it? Under the long nose mask that was as funny as a clown, there was a bloodthirsty and tyrannical appearance. As Jack had said, it was a terrifying monster. Goodbye, Director. Coulson, who was in the midst of his consciousness dying, vaguely saw a black shadow rushing over from the distance. Hado number 4, Pale Lightning. Boom. A blazing white beam of light tore through the night like thunder, piercing through Hollow's wrist with an incomparably fierce momentum. Oh. Jillian let go of Coulson under the pain. Coulson, who was falling rapidly from the sky, was suddenly caught by the black figure. Then, the two of them slowly landed on the ground. Hoochie! Hoochie! Coulson, who had finally escaped death with great difficulty, suddenly gasped heavily. He raised his head with great difficulty and looked at the mysterious person who had saved him. Short silver hair, blue pupils, long black sleeves, Haori, loose black trousers, and the short ribs hanging at his waist, Sword, who was exactly the same as Jack had described. Death God? Coulson was shocked. You. Are you Death God? Huh? Laud raised his eyebrows and pretended to ask, You actually know of Death God's existence? He was indeed Death God. Hearing Laud admit it, Coulson was shocked again and hurriedly said, I learned it from Jack. It was the man you saved that day. We have been looking for you. Looking for me? Laud continued to act, You should be humans. Why are you looking for me, Death God? Coulson coughed a few mouthfuls of blood, and then Hollow said weakly, We have a lot of things to ask you, such as Hollow and Death God, or how long you have been here. Roar. A loud roar interrupted the two. An apologetic look appeared on Laud's face. He turned around and said, Sorry, now is not the time to talk about this. Let me kill this Big Hollow first. Big Hollow? Hearing this, Coulson was stunned. Then, he looked at the huge monster and thought to himself, This is indeed a Big Hollow. Roar. The moment Big Hollow saw Laud, it was as if he had seen an enemy, and he erupted with crazy, bloodthirsty killing intent. The hundreds of fellow clansmen that it had devoured, and the countless fragments of vengeful souls, there was still a deep hatred for this man. It was him. It was this man who imprisoned them, who were still humans, in a deep underground cave, forcing their souls to mutate and eventually degenerate into Hollow. Kill you. Big Hollow struggled to jump out a sentence. He madly rushed towards Laud. Oh? Laud lifted his eyelids slightly and chuckled, I didn't expect that Big Hollow still had remnants of his memories. It seems that it hasn't completely fallen yet. Kill you. Swoosh. Big Hollow raised a large, slender, pale hand, and 5 sharp nails suddenly slashed across, causing ripples in the air. Be careful. Dodge. Coulson's heart tightened. Seeing that Laud was still in place, he was so scared that he loudly reminded him to dodge. Don't worry about it. Laud was still calm. Under Coulson's frightened gaze, he slowly raised his right hand, It's just that this level is not enough to make me move. Bakuto number 61, 6 Rods Prison of Light. The moment his voice fell, 6 rays of light appeared and shot out like 6 stars, locking the hollow. This scene caused Coulson's eyes to widen, and his jaw almost hit the ground. He said in shock, "What is this? Magic? Witchcraft? Or qigong?" "No." Laud put down his hand and explained, "This is Kido, only a part of the high-level curse technique that Death God can use." Coulson was stunned. "Kido? High-level curse technique?" Roar. Hollow was bound by 6 rods prison of light. No matter how much he struggled, he could not move. He could only let out an incompetent roar. The scarlet light in his eyes became more and more intense. Buzz. Hollow opened his mouth under the mask. Rays of dazzling red light gathered in front of his mouth, accompanied by terrifying energy fluctuations. F*CK? When Coulson saw this familiar scene, his heart immediately twitched. This can't be an energy weapon, right? Zero? Seeing the gathering red light, Laud was slightly shocked. "You actually learned this technique?" He didn't expect this low-level fusion monster to actually learn it. "But it's fine." Laud sneered and said, "Just in time, let's test the waters." "Ye Lord! Mask of flesh and bone, flutter of wings, ye who bears the name of man. Truth and temperance, upon this sinless wall of dreams unleash but slightly the wrath of your claws." Hado number 33, Pale Fire Crash. Roar. The completely chanted had completed. Spiritual power rushed out from the palm of Laud's hand. A blue dragon roared and rushed out. The two finished storing up power at the same time. The two attacks collided, erupting with a deafening explosion. Rumble. The street collapsed in an instant, and the visible wind howled. Huge rocks and debris of buildings were thrown high into the air. Was this the battle between Death God and Hollow? Coulson looked at the ruins in front of him, as if he had been bombarded by cruise missiles. His heart could not help but be full of seriousness. As expected of Zero. In the smoke and dust, Laud stepped on the air of Hollow. His figure was a little embarrassed, and his face showed a touch of helplessness. Not easy to defeat at Kido under 40. However, this was also expected. After all, he was only a 6th rank spiritual power, which was equivalent to the last rank officer. After he reaches captain level power, he could even kill this kind of big Hollow just by relying on spiritual pressure. Roar dash. Big Hollow roared, and the visible spiritual power current boiled, causing the surrounding space to shake, forcibly breaking 6 rods prison of light's shackles. Was. Laud lowered his eyes. The commotion just now was big enough. "Your mission has been completed. Now, you can die in peace." The short ribs on his waist were unsheathed, and the silver sword blade reflected a penetrating cold light under the moonlight. Ikaros, Shinso. A silver light suddenly flashed. Accompanied by the incomparably sharp sword, it streaked several times at the speed of sound, and Hollow's roar stopped abruptly. Clang. Laud put the sword back into the sheath. A huge head broke and fell heavily to the ground. Jillian died. Chapter 8 Restrain. With just a sword, he had instantly killed a terrifying monster that was over 100 meters tall and possessed the destructive power of a cruise missile. Coulson was horrified. Death God. It was an individual creature that was far more terrifying than Hollow. It was even more difficult to deal with than the humans with special abilities he had encountered before. Powerful individual strength, unknown magic methods, and soul. From that angle, it seemed that this death god in front of him was not an existence that Shield could currently control. For a moment, Coulson fell into silence. He didn't know what kind of attitude he should use to represent Shield and the human race to face such an unknown and terrifying existence. As a professional agent of Shield, Coulson deeply understood one thing. If there was no limit to the power, it would inevitably lead to a great disaster. The world was chaotic, it had two sides, justice and evil opposing each other, but neither was indispensable. Absolute justice was not advisable, and neither was absolute evil. they felt that Shield's existence was responsible for mediating between the two. Just like those superheroes who had their own old enemies and supervillains, Shield eliminate evil. They only hoped to stabilize the balance between the two. But now, the balance was broken. The sudden appearance of Death God, a term that they had never heard of, broke the balance of the world. Just as Laud was about to turn around and leave, he was stopped by Coulson, who was behind him. Wait, this Mr. Death God. Coulson endured the pain all over his body and struggled to get up from the ground. My name is Philip Coulson. I am agent from the Strategic Homeland Intervention, Enforcement, and Logistics Division. On behalf of the United States and mankind, I express my sincere gratitude to you for eliminating this monster. This string of English words stunned Laud for a few seconds, and then he said with a strange face, "You said you are, what is this?" "You can also call it Shield, Mr. Death God." Coulson showed a look of indifference. After all, Shield's full name was the same as Da Vinci's. Coulson had never seen someone who could completely remember the name of their organization. "Alright, Shield." Laud nodded slightly. Then, he smiled warmly and said, "You don't have to thank me. Why are you looking for me?" Seeing that the other party was so easy to talk to and seemed to be very friendly, Coulson immediately let out a sigh of relief. After thinking about it for a while, he said, "It's like this, Mr. Death God. Our Shield has always been dedicated to protecting humans, eliminating all dangers and abnormal situations. Therefore, we want to ask you a few questions about the large monsters just now. Do you think it's okay?" "I refuse." Laud looked indifferent and smiled slightly. "It doesn't matter if it's Shield or human. What does it have to do with me? You guard the living, we guard the dead. That's all." Coulson choked for a moment. As Death God had said, one was protecting the living, and the other was protecting the dead. There was no need to contact between the two, so why should the other answer his question? But this was not the result that Fury wanted, nor was it the result he wanted. Coulson continued, "I don't think so, Mr. Death God." "Oh?" Laud raised his eyebrows, and a trace of impatience flashed through his blue eyes. "Then what do you think should be done?" "Shit." Coulson saw very clearly that this Death God was clearly impatient. However, due to his duties, Coulson had no choice but to bite the bullet and say, "Forgive me for being blunt, Mr. Death God. You just said that there is no connection between us, but the monster that appeared today has obviously threatened us. This?" Laud hesitated slightly, a hint of helplessness and anger appearing on his face. This was just an accident. The flash of helplessness and anger was accurately captured by Coulson. There was hope. Coulson was delighted, and several thoughts flashed through his mind. "Mr. Death God, as far as I know, there have been dozens of similar accidents in a year. The damage to the buildings is estimated to be at least $10 billion. Of course, these may not be much to you. But when these monsters appeared, hundreds of people died. As the living, shouldn't we ask?" It had to be said. Coulson was indeed outstanding. Not only did he keenly capture his emotional fluctuations, he even guessed the flaws in his words and questioned him instead. But it was a pity. All of Coulson's speculations were based on the fact if they were equal. Are you questioning me?" Laud narrowed his eyes and his voice became a little cold, releasing a trace of spiritual power. Boom. Coulson suddenly felt as if there was a heavy pressure, and he was instantly pressed down on the ground. Heavy. Terrifying. It was as if an invisible pressure was surging from all directions in the deep sea 10,000 meters below. Even breathing had become an extravagant hope. No. Coulson was terrified. He moved his lips with difficulty and said, "You misunderstood me. I am not questioning you." Humph. Laud looked down from above, his eyes slightly cold. "A mere human, how dare you to speak to me in such a tone? You really have guts." Under the eaves of the house, people had to bow their heads. Coulson did not think that this master would fear the so-called Shield. Coulson was very tactful and said, "Mr. Death God, we just want to talk to you. We have no ill intentions. Let's talk?" Laud laughed, his tone carrying a trace of disdain. "With just you guys, what can you talk to me about?" "Cooperation." Coulson immediately said, "You protect the dead, and we protect the living. We can cooperate and protect this world together." "Cooperate?" Laud's eyes were indifferent. He sneered and said, "It's a pity. You are not qualified to talk about cooperation with us." "But..." Before Coulson could finish his words, Laud suddenly put a finger on his forehead. "Bakuto number 1, restrain." An invisible force tied Coulson's arms back and blocked his mouth at the same time. "Goodbye, human." Laud used a ho-ho and disappeared from Coulson's sight. At this point, his plan was considered to have been completed. If he wanted to deceive Shield, he couldn't rush. Who was Nick Fury? He was a veteran of the Second World War who had been in charge of Shield for decades. He was meticulous and suspicious. He was extremely tough and had participated in most secret plans. Someone once commented that no one could guess what was going on in the brain of this soy egg. No one knew who he trusted. No one even knew if the person standing in front of them was really Nick Fury. In the face of such a cunning person, Laud had to be careful and not give himself away. So, if he wanted that suspicious soy egg to believe that there were really Death God and Soul Society in the world, then his attitude and arrogance could not be too low. He had to show the mystery of an ancient organization that had been passed down for thousands of years, as well as the powerful and terrifying strength. Humans were like this. The harder it was to obtain something, the more they would treasure it. Things were like this, and so were humans. Thank you for listening. Do not forget to like and subscribe.